so that's his life now.
All right, I'm hitting live.
Yep. I shall stop swearing.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in 1 second. Got lots to talk about today. We'll try and make it quick, but that's rarely the case with us.
That's mostly me. I take full responsibility. The stimulants kick in, and I become a jabber.
Right, when you put the tweet out, we should be ready.
Okay, tweet is sent. Let me do my own and bring up the notes. All right, my tweet is also sent. Okay, whatever there. Let me bring up broadcast, recorder, and the notes. All right, I am now recording.
I'm now recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 285 for September 23rd, 2022. Hey everyone, Dean and Rubino joined here with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. Sadly, no Jez Corden this week. By the way, it was Jez's idea to jump on this podcast, and he's kind of hit and miss lately with them, but I guess maybe we'll just expect that from him. Nonetheless, we will have this week's news, which was quite a lot that actually happened, especially at the beginning of the week. We do have Windows 11 22H2 is out, also known as the Fall 2022 update. I believe that's what it's called. There's also the new Windows Update Cadence, which Zach will explain. Microsoft also announced the new Surface hardware event coming October 12th. So not a huge surprise about a hardware event, as they always do one, usually in October. So we'll, of course, talk about expectations and predictions of what to expect there, because there were some more rumors and leaky info coming up this week, specifically about Surface Laptop 5 and Surface Pro 9, which are really interesting, actually. So we'll go through those and break those down. Sorry, AMD fans, maybe? I don't know. We'll also talk about Surface Duo 2 availability. Yes, Microsoft has finally responded to my request about what's the deal with the Duo 2. So is it discontinued? Is there a Duo 3 coming? Is it because they're putting Android 12L on? Or is it something else? You're just going to have to listen into the podcast, I guess, to find out, because I'm not going to tell you. Logitech came out of nowhere and announced the G Cloud handheld, which is one of the first handheld devices dedicated solely for cloud gaming. And of course, it works with Xbox cloud gaming, but NVIDIA, basically all the services. And we'll talk about the pros and cons, the pricing, and when you can get one. And then we'll also blast through some reviews that went up on the site this week. And then we'll do, of course, a thing of the week. Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. I am tired. It was a busy week. Slightly stressful
It sure
as well.
was.
But we got through it. We did everything we need to do. I think we did it quite well. And we covered all the big news. How are you?
Hanging in there. Yes, it definitely was kind of a busy week. A lot going on with some embargoes coming up. But yeah, it'll be interesting stuff. Microsoft definitely had a pretty big week as well. So I guess we'll jump right into that. So Windows 11 22H2 is now available to most devices. Some devices, there's always that exception that is going on. I'll talk about my exception, but Zach, why don't you explain to us the big news here this week and how people can get this update, and should they get this update?
Sure. So yes, the rumors were correct. My original report saying that Windows 11 22H2 would begin its rollout on September 20th became true. Microsoft announced it on Tuesday this week, and it was immediately available, starting in waves, which is what they always sort of say. They use the phrase measured and phased approach. which what essentially means we're just going to roll it out a bit at a time to put to people to PCs that are eligible. So if you haven't seen it in Windows Update yet, you will likely see it over the coming weeks. There are sort of one or two caveats to that. One, it has to be a Windows 11 eligible PC to begin with. So if you weren't eligible for Windows 11 last year, you're still not eligible for Windows 11 this year. They've not relaxed any requirements. The requirements are the same. But if you are eligible for Windows 11 and have been since last year, you will, instead of being updated to the first version of Windows 11 now, you will be offered Windows 11 version 22H2 in Windows Update. And users on Windows 11 already will be offered 22H2 as well, but that's happening in waves. So even if you're running Windows 11 right now and you go to check for updates, you may not see it yet. But that will certainly show up for you in the coming weeks. It is a full build upgrade, so a lot of people are expecting it to be an enablement package type release. That is not the case. This is a full release. So when you install it, it will be a much larger download than an enablement package normally would be, and it will also take a little bit longer to install. Internally, they've used the phrase OS swap for this kind of upgrade because what it essentially does is reinstall Windows. It picks up all of your files and programs, reinstalls Windows underneath, and puts everything back, and that's why it takes a bit longer versus the enablement package approach, which is a simple switch that just enables features that were slipstreamed into Windows at a prior update over time and then just turned on at a certain point. So that's the sort of technical sort of behind the scenes as to why this update is so large and so long. Though they did announce a handful of changes to the Windows Update cadence, which I think is the sort of biggest news of this week. And this ties into the moment stuff that I've been talking about for a number of weeks now. Unfortunately, they're not using an actual external sort of brand or name for these updates, but internally they are referred to as moments, so that's what I'm going to continue to call them. But yes, they essentially confirmed that the idea of continuous innovation, frequently updating Windows 11 with new feature drops going forward is happening. And that starts next month with the first Moment 1. Again, they're not calling it that, but internally that's what they call it. So that's what I'm going to call it. Moment 1, which they've also confirmed with the contents of, will include tabs in File Explorer, taskbar overflow UI or an updated version of it, suggested actions, a new Photos app, and improvements to the Microsoft Store. So quite a collection of new features there for the first Moment. And interestingly, this is the only Moment I think Microsoft is enforcing onto not just consumers but enterprises as well. And we'll get into the intricacies around who gets what and what can be configured and what can't be configured in a second. But that Moment 1 update is what brings File Explorer tabs. So if you install 22H2 today, you will not have tabs in File Explorer. That is coming next month or within the next couple of months. They said the rollout will begin in October, but I think most users won't see it until November anyway. But it will be within the next couple of months. And that's essentially how Windows is going to be updated going forward. They are committed to an annual feature update still, but I don't expect that to be a full OS swap upgrade anymore. I think that would be a smaller servicing style / enablement package type release. Only because this ties back to the whole 3-year development cycle thing. People did ask Microsoft, press actually had like a briefing with Microsoft earlier last week, I think it was, where they told all press beforehand what was happening, and we had the chance to ask questions. And of course, somebody asked the question, what about 3-year development cycle, which has been in the news? Is that happening? And they wouldn't confirm anything. They just reiterated that they are sticking to an annual feature update for Windows 11, which can technically be true, but that doesn't mean the feature updates will be based on a new version of the Windows client anymore. 22H2, I think, is the last version that will be based on a new version of the Windows client until 2024, which is when we're expecting the next version of Windows or whatever they end up calling it. So that's all of that. Now, how do enterprises get to configure this? Well, because these features will be delivered via servicing, essentially bundled with monthly security updates, people on Windows Home will not have the choice to turn them off, I don't believe. There's no opt-out for Windows Home users. So if you're using a PC with Windows 11 Home, you will get these features automatically when Microsoft drops them. They haven't said how often that will be. I know internally documents say 3 to 4 times a year. The first one is October. The second one I think is scheduled for February/March. They've not publicly stated that, but that's just info for you and me to know, I guess. But home users will not be able to avoid them. Once you install the monthly security patches, which are pretty much mandatory, the features will be bundled with those and you will get them automatically. Windows 11 Pro, Enterprise and Education, I believe it's different. I believe Windows 11 Pro, it's opt-in by default, but because Windows 11 Pro users have group policy access, they can go into the group policy editor and flip a switch that says, no, I don't want any new features added via Moments. And that, unfortunately, you can't turn off individual features. It's a one or nothing switch. So if you want one feature, you have to have them all. If you turn one off, they all go away. So keep that in mind. And I think for enterprise and education, it's opt out by default, and then enterprises and IT admins and whatnot can choose to opt in on managed devices if that's what they want to do. The fall update will be where that is no longer a thing. So throughout the next year, the next 12 months, Microsoft will drop a bunch of Windows features onto version 22H2 via Moments. And if you're an enterprise who opts out of that, by the time 23H2 ships, all of those features that are optional on 22H2 will no longer be optional on 23H2. So that's how Microsoft was going to sort of get people to upgrade to new versions, or to keep people more current, because although enterprises can technically avoid them, they can't avoid them forever, because that would break compatibility of all kinds of things. So also important to keep that in mind as far as I'm aware. So it's a lot of small and interesting changes to the update cadence, but very important. This is a brand new thing for Windows that they've not done before, really. They've added one or two features here and there through servicing in the past, but nothing on this scale and this prominence, because they basically announced it as a new thing, that this is how Windows will be updated going forward. And it's a more safer way of updating things, and it's quicker for Microsoft because they can get new features out instead of having to wait for the annual feature update every fall. And consumers get more features more often as well, which it can be a good or bad thing depending on the feature and how big of a change the feature introduces. Enterprises will probably be the customers who have the most issue with this, but that's why they have the option to opt out of this if they don't want to see these new features all the time. But that's basically all the news, all the big news around 22H2 this week. They did confirm the moment stuff. They did not confirm the 3-year development cycle thing, but of course they were never going to confirm that. They weren't going to tell us Windows 12 was in development. That would be silly. Even though somebody did ask, I was on the call when someone was like, are you doing Windows 12? And I just laughed because, like, what else are they going to say? They were like, well, actually, the guy, I think Arrow, I don't know, I'm not going to paraphrase here because I can't remember what he said word for word, but he essentially said, I've not heard anybody talking about Windows 12, which I thought, that's a good lie, because if you haven't heard, then we're in trouble. But yeah, no, Microsoft is not confirming Windows 12 is in development, which is to be expected, because why would they talk about that 2.5 years away from it coming out?
Right.
Yeah.
Especially, most companies don't like when they're announcing something new to talk about the new thing that's coming out later. Like they're like press, focus.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
we're talking about this thing today, not the thing that we haven't announced that may be coming in a couple of years. And this is the usual thing with the 22, this update too, where some devices get it and some don't. I had a lot of devices on release preview, so they were already running 22H2 for the last few weeks. But my new favorite laptop, I've been using the Dragonfly G3, Elite Dragonfly G3 from HP. I put on release preview about 2 weeks ago. It was actually before I went to Israel. I was like, let me get this update. It seems stable now. And sometimes it takes like 24 hours for that to kick in, although usually it's pretty instant. And I was like, okay. And it never kicked in. And then I got the little message that said, sit tight, 28, the new update is coming. I think it said 22H2. There's nothing you can do now. It'll come to your device when it's ready. And I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of a bummer. And then I was like, all right. I started looking to ways to force it. So I downloaded the ISO, mounted it, did it that way. It said, no, sorry, it's not compatible. And I was like, okay. And then they announced 22H2 general availability. I was like, all right, here's the day, And so I go to update and I still have that message. And then even today, I tried it again and it pulled down a bunch of new Intel drivers. I was like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe because it's running 12th gen and there's something with this chipset that's holding it. Maybe these drivers will install. I'll reboot the computer and I'll be good to go. And nope, it's still not there. So it's kind of a bummer. I really kind of want 22H2 on the Dragonfly because I'm using it all the time. I do have it on the ThinkPad X13s, which is really great. I've had it there for a couple weeks too. And I have it on my main desktop and everything. I like the update. It's a lot of polish for me, and I like the little changes to the notifications and the taskbar, the action center and everything like that. I think just looks a lot better. I don't care about some of the other things that are coming, including tabs and File Explorer, folders on Start menu. I really don't use Start menu. As I said previously, I use mostly search. That said, interestingly, that Dragonfly, which is on release preview, though it doesn't have 22H2, it did pull in the new A/B testing search bar changes.
Oh, did it?
So,
interesting.
Yes. Yeah, so for those who don't remember, right now, if you have your taskbar and you have search enabled, it's a little magnifying glass, which, makes sense. They're testing, though, a different version, which is like a pill-shaped box and it says search the web on it. And then when you click it, it brings up the same start thing and you can like kind of type and all that kind of stuff. I personally like it. I actually think it looks better. I don't really like the magnifying glass. I mean, it's fine. I think what they should do, and to be honest, I was just thinking about this before I came on the podcast. I should test it. I don't know if you like right click on the pill, can you shrink it down to the magnifying glass? I got to look into that because if they give you that option, I don't think that's a big deal. Of course, you could just turn off search from the settings anyway. That's it, yeah. Well, it's funny because I usually do turn off search with the magnifying glass, but I kind of like the look of search the web. I don't know why. I just like the look of it. It just reminds me more of classic Windows, what it used to be. But again, like all changes in Windows, there are a lot of people out there who are like shaking their fists at it and everything. I personally, like I said, I like it. I think it's kind of cool. I was surprised to see it on this laptop, but I kind of hope they stick with it. Or like I said, just give us the option that, because they used to kind of do that. I believe on the old, I don't remember what version of Windows it was. If it was Windows 7 or Windows 8, where you can have the search box, but then you can kind of shrink it down manually, and it would just be like a little magnifying glass. That was Windows 10. Yeah. So maybe if they did that, I think everybody kind of wins. But I actually really like the text in there. I don't know. I think it's kind of nice. But yeah, so that was kind of cool. We didn't have this in the show notes, but do you want to talk about the new Photos app?
I was about to mention it, yeah. I briefly mentioned it when I talked about the Moment 1 update. They did say a new Photos app would be rolling out alongside that. It's important to keep in mind that not everything will roll out through Windows Update servicing. Some will be delivered through the Microsoft Store as app updates. The widgets panel will be one of those features, for example, as is the Photos app update. That will be rolling out through the Microsoft Store, not through Windows Update servicing. But yeah, they announced that a new Photos app is coming. And in a day, I think it was yesterday, that preview began rolling out in the dev channel. And it's a new Photos experience. It has a slightly new icon, which I think looks really nice. The new UI is very nice as well. But it's a bit of a weird app. I've toyed around with it for a bit. It does everything the old one did except for video editing. They've taken the video editing away because it's no longer necessary since Clipchamp is now pre-installed on Windows. But you get the view of all of your photos that are local as well as your OneDrive photos. They all just show up automatically, and clicking on a photo doesn't open it to see it bigger. It's like highlights it, selects it. You have to double click to open the photo to see it bigger. But then that opens a new window rather than just zooming in on the photo within the single Photos app. I'm not too keen on that design. I kind of prefer it when you just click on it once and it just becomes bigger anyway. There's still time for them to tweak this. It is an app after all. They can update it whenever they deem necessary. But the UI...
They said the legacy app is staying in the store.
It's true, yeah.
You can always download that and just go back.
So this will be an update to the Photos app that's pre-installed now, which is the old Photos app. But once you get the new update, if you choose you don't like this new Photos app, you can go into the store and download Photos Legacy, which will install the old version side by side with the new version. But yeah, so the UI is actually quite nice. I do really like the UI. It makes backing up photos to OneDrive easier as well. That's now a single click away. You right click, back up to OneDrive, done. No problem there. There's also a Memories tab now, so you can click on there. Sometimes OneDrive will be like, hey, this is what you were doing on this day a year ago or 2 years ago. That's now in the app as well. Unfortunately, though, clicking on any of the albums in there will take you to the OneDrive website. It won't display the album within the app. Again, another super annoying design choice there, but hopefully that changes with a future version. But it's certainly faster. It's much faster than the old Photos app, I believe. Unfortunately, the editing experience is still the same as the old one, so it's still missing Spot Fix tool, which was there years ago. Then they removed it, and it's not been brought back since. If they could bring that back, this will be a perfect Photos experience for me. But until then, it sucks.
Has the APX leaked for it?
They've not leaked. I mean, it has rolling out to the dev channel. So if you're
right, but I'm saying if because sometimes you can just get the APX and sideload it.
Yeah, I can probably find it for you if you want to try it out.
Yeah, just kind of curious. And Brandon LeBlanc, so some place is shaking his fist right now.
Do it properly. No, I want it on beta channel. Thank you. No. The other thing I wanted to mention, which is unrelated to this, is they also announced the expansion of availability for Android app support. Previously this was only available in the United States and Japan. It's now rolling out to 31 markets. Now, Microsoft didn't list all of the markets in its announcement, I don't believe, but they did list a few of them. France, Germany, the UK, they're all on there now. And that's good to finally see. It did take a very long time for that to happen, but it's finally happening, and that's a good thing. So for those who don't know, the Android subsystem for Windows, it ties itself to the Amazon App Store. So when you download the subsystem, the Amazon App Store gets pre-installed as well, and then you can download Android apps through there. There's not much in there. Amazon/Microsoft were touting 20,000 apps, but I would say less than 1% of that is actually useful to anybody looking to try run apps. Luckily, you can sideload Android apps, but that's a bit more of a process. You can't just. I don't think it's not a super.
We do have a guide.
There is a guide.
We have one on our site.
Yeah,
so.
But it's not an easy process. But you can do that if you want. But again, it has all the same issues it had from when it first rolled out in preview. It uses a lot of RAM. It uses like 2 gigabytes of RAM or more, depending on how many Android apps you're running. So having that constantly running in the background, even if you're not running an Android app, is kind of annoying, especially if you're on a device with 8 gigs of RAM or even 16 gigs of RAM. There's not too much RAM to spare there a lot of the time, especially if you're a power user. So for 32 gigs and up, maybe you can get away with it. But, keep that in mind when you're using the subsystem for Android. But yeah, I think that's all the big Windows news for the week, unless I'm missing anything. I don't think I am. Oh, the Windows 10 2022 update is coming next month. They confirmed finally. So if you're running Windows 10 still, that feature update will be rolling out next month. They have not said what's going to be in it yet. Still no idea what features there are. But it will be an enablement package style release. So it won't be a full build upgrade. It will just simply be a 2-minute install process, just like the last 3 feature updates for Windows 10 have been, and what I suspect future Windows 11 feature updates are going to be going forward. But yeah, I think that's really it. I don't think there's any more Windows news.
Sarah's asking in comments, can I try the new Photos app on 22H2? Well, so that's what we're just talking about. If we can find the APX. Yeah, there's no reason why that APX should install pretty much on any version of Windows, unless there are dependencies in the OS. But I can't see that being the case for the Photos app. I think it's a pretty standalone application where it doesn't require any ties to the underlying plumbing of the operating system. So yeah, you should be if you can locate the APX, yeah, it should be able to run on pretty much any version of Windows 11. So, yeah, so pretty big news there. Pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to trying the Photos app. It's nice to see them refocus. But you're right, some of those criticisms I think are pretty valid. I do miss the semantic zoom, they called it. It was a way of finding photos where you can just go by the year. It was like a little side thing. It was a carryover from Windows Phone, part of the design there. Kind of a shame that's kind of going away, but I do, at least they're paying attention to the inbox apps again, right? They really are focusing on that stuff.
It is weird how some of the inbox apps are going back to being native UWP, or at the very least native WinUI, and whereas other apps are going the opposite. They're going to web-based application clients, like Outlook, for example, Family Safety and Clipchamp are all web-based, but the new Photos app, the new Microsoft Store, Notepad are all WinUI/UWP based. So it's like, why are they going different route? I just wish they'd all just settle on WinUI, but I guess that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and the Android app stuff, I don't want to spend too much time on that just because I still stick by. I don't think this is it's not useful at all for daily activities.
It would be. Sorry, go on.
For developers, I was going to say for developers, I think it's kind of cool because you can now take a look at your app directly in Windows side by side as you're, programming it. So I think for developers, it's an interesting option. But in terms of consumers using this as an alternative, like I said, I did use it that one time with Spotify Live and used recorded, with Michael Fisher. I was able to record through my PC Spotify Live, which was a cool thing instead of relying on my phone to do it. And I did our hack using the guide on Windows Central on how to sideload Android APKs. But I haven't used it since. So it was like for certain things, but yeah, I know people are like, oh, but I have a banking app, which I always hear, and it's, but like I think that the odds you're going to be using, I think the odds you're going to be using any kind, even the security apps, like I feel like the odds of you doing that regularly can be pretty slim, just because the performance and interaction just isn't quite there. But we'll see what they do with it. I don't know. I mean, I think options are good. If it doesn't hurt having it there, that's for sure. But I don't think it's I just want to, I guess, pop the bubble for people saying this is why they should do Windows Phone again. They should just have Windows 11 on a handheld, and then you can run all the Android apps within that. And it's just like that would be horrible. We don't have the hardware technology to make that a viable experience. So stop using this as a, oh my God, they're going to bring Windows Phone back. That is not the case here at all, and that would not be a solution.
Yeah. I was going to say it would be a much more interesting thing if they were allowing Android apps to be submitted natively to the Microsoft Store. If they sort of got rid of the Amazon sort of connection, which is right now required, you have to use Amazon to get the apps. If they just got rid of that and just were like, hey, developers, submit your Android apps to the Microsoft Store, that would be a much more interesting game, I think, because not only then could Microsoft build up its own catalog of Android apps, it could even bring its own store to Android and then be like, hey, those Android apps that we have collected on Windows, that app is now on Android, and it now has all the Android apps on Android. So now, if you're an OEM and you don't want to use Google services, hit us up. We've got a store, and you can preload us, and then suddenly Microsoft has an ecosystem on Android, and then that's just crazy. That starts a whole nother game of OEM, and who do you want to go for? You want to go for Google Android? You want to go for Microsoft Android? Maybe they could get Samsung on board, and then Samsung would be using Microsoft Android. Wow, what a day that would be.
Well, like I said, maybe down the road that's where they're heading or want to try to head. So we'll see what happens there. In terms of the web app stuff, I'm still using the new Outlook one, the pre-release. And I love that thing. I think it's great. They've been adding stuff to it, and it's just I've had no issues with it. There is that one thing you mentioned, which technically is solvable, which is when you close it, like exit out, it's not running. Yeah, it doesn't check for notifications anymore. Personally, I kind of like that because then I know I'm not getting, I can actually just not get notifications for that and just keep it minimized and running in the taskbar and everything like that. It's fine. But I've been getting reliable notifications and everything from it. I think it's been great. So I can't wait till I kind of wish they finished that already and would ship it with 22H2. We don't have a firm date on that yet.
For what is that, sorry?
For the Outlook app, for the new one.
No firm date. It's not pre-installed with Windows yet. I believe that's the plan eventually. But that project's been behind schedule for a while. They were supposed to do all of this last year and they never did. So, who knows when that will actually be? But the goal is to replace Mail and Calendar on Windows 11 with the One Outlook web Outlook app that they're testing now.
Yeah, well, they're doing a good job with it. They can continue to improve upon it. All the power to them. I'm here for it because that current mail app, I've uninstalled that. I'm done with it. It's just behind. All right, let's turn our attention to the Surface event. So we've been speculating about this event for a long time. It's no secret that every year Microsoft tends to do an event around September, October timeframe, whenever they see fit. It's usually based on when they can get these devices shipped. I could already probably predict they're going to announce things. Hopefully we'll have review of the hardware like a week or 2 weeks after, usually. And then that's also usually the same day when you can order them or pre-order the stuff. I don't know. And they start shipping. That's usually their cadence, and that's usually how they line up this timing. So I don't think any of this was a surprise. Just like it probably won't be a surprise that they'll do a spring refresh, which won't be broadcast, but it'll be like a press release, and they'll probably update some devices, unless it's a really big update, but we don't know. Let's focus, though, on fall. So they did announce this October 12th. It'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I guess it's happening in New York, or that's at least New York time.
Yeah, they've not said a location or if it'll even be in person, just that they've just said, watch live on this day, and that's all we know. So
the last live event they had with the audience was, of course, 2019. Right. And then, of course, with the pandemic, they've just been doing sort of the videos, pre-shot, which is fine. Honestly, the live events are cool, but I'm not sure they're completely necessary either. I'm a big fan of virtual events personally. I'm actually glad a lot of the companies are pivoting towards that. It makes my job actually easier because I get everything in advance and I can take my time with it instead of, I don't want to be in the audience and oh my God, they just announced this. Now we got to write it up. It's just I don't like that stress in my life. But so October 12th, 10 a.m. Eastern time. That's the event. We don't know if it's live, if it's recorded, if there will be an audience. I don't know if I'm invited to it. We don't know any of that stuff yet. So a lot of questions up in the air about that event. But I guess let's get to what everybody really wants to know, which is what are they going to announce, which if you've been listening to this podcast for the last few weeks, actually won't be a surprise, as Zach's predictions haven't veered far from that. So, Zach, why don't you go through that stuff quickly, and then we'll address the rumors and some of the news that leaked out this week.
Yeah, so on the agenda for the Surface event, we have the Surface Pro 9, the Surface Studio 3, a new Surface laptop, and perhaps Surface Earbuds 2. Those are sort of top sort of billing products. Of course, there'll be accessories and other bits and bobs here and there, but those are the sort of highlights I think are going to make an appearance. I'm least confident on the earbuds, but I have heard that this fall was likely when they were originally supposed to show up, so fingers crossed that is still the case. But the big three there, the PCs, the Studio, the laptop, and the Pro are probably going to be the highlights for most people. As we all know already, the Surface Pro 9, this will be the first version of the Surface Pro that incorporates both Intel and Qualcomm chips on the inside. So the Pro X is being merged into the main Pro line. And we're
not on the same device.
Not on the same, yeah, right. They've got Intel and ARM in one product. Yeah, no. You'll be able to configure the Pro 9 with either Intel or ARM options. And what I'm hearing here is, if you want 5G, for example, in the Surface Pro 9, you will have to get an ARM option because that's built into the system on a chip, whereas the Intel versions will, I believe, be Wi-Fi only, at least for this year. Other reports have said it will be called Pro 9, not Pro 10. I kind of had a suspicion it might be Pro 10 because it is 10 years of Surface, but apparently that isn't going to be the case. It'll be Surface Pro 9 and then Surface Pro 9 with 5G, the 5G one being the ARM version. We'll get into a little bit more details in a sec for that. But Surface Laptop, we're also hearing will be coming this fall. Now, I originally heard that this would be a normal Surface Laptop release, you know, Intel AMD options. But a report from WinFuture earlier this week suggests that that won't be the case. We'll only be getting Intel options this year, which will be the first time since Laptop 3 that Microsoft will ship a Surface laptop without an AMD Ryzen option in the store. There could be a few reasons for this. I guess my theory here is that the component shortage has either delayed or cancelled the AMD version, because I know they were testing it internally. They have Ryzen 6000 series laptops internally, but because my sources are all internal, they're not always a great teller as to what will ship. Because, for example, I know that the Surface Duo 1 had a 64GB variant, but that never shipped. You know, so even though they have them internally, doesn't mean they will ship as products. I think WinFuture is probably quite accurate on this with their report, because I believe they get their sources from like retailers or people in the marketing side of things, which is the final hurdle, which is where things are mostly finalized. So if that's not happening, then that's a big shame for AMD fans. But it will be until 12th gen, though they claim U-Series, which is a bit of a shock to me. I would have thought P-Series in the laptop. U-Series in the Pro 9 does make sense. I was also hearing P-Series for Pro 9, but I don't think that's going to happen because they just run too hot. They're not very efficient. But in the laptop, especially the 15-inch laptop, why the hell not?
Yeah, okay, so the 15... I agree. A P-Series could definitely work. Yeah. I am using both U and P-Series, at least for my needs and what I think these devices are designed for. I think U-Series is fine. Yeah. Like I said, I've been running the Dragonfly sometimes, which is a U-Series chip, Core i7. I've been sometimes running it in Battery Saver just regularly, which I've never done on a laptop before, just because if I'm browsing web, doing email, doing Slack and messaging, it's been more than enough. Like, I don't need more power than that. In fact, and I like the Dragonfly so much, I was actually looking to configure one myself this week, which I rarely ever do. I rarely ever buy my own laptops, obviously. But I would have, if I was going to order, I would have just, I'm going to get the Core i5 version. Wow. I was going to get the silver one too, because I like the silver a little bit better. But yeah, so personally, I think because the U series is so much more powerful than the 11th gen chip, because it has so many more cores to it, that it's just like, it is a massive performance jump. The P series is even more of a massive jump, but I just feel like, you know, it's going to be overkill for most people. And I know that's kind of a weird thing to say. It's like, can a processor ever be too fast? What I just mean is, like, in the daily experience of using Windows, you're using Office, like I said, Office, web, information kind of stuff, watching movies, you know, doing Slack, Skype, all these kind of things. I feel like the P series, like, it's just kind of overkill. Like, it doesn't feel like that much faster, you know. What you do notice, though, is, of course, it's going to run hotter. Your fans are going to be on a little bit more. And, of course, the battery life won't be as good because it's running at least 28 watts usually, although they can configure the TDP accordingly. I do agree they could probably get away with this in the 15-inch, and that would be actually an interesting proposition. It would actually make the distinction between a 13 and 15 way more interesting than it is now, because as is, the 15 is literally just a larger 13. Like, it's just a bigger display. That's all you're getting.
Yeah.
If they made it a P series, yeah, that would actually kind of be cool. Then, like, you can justify getting the 15 inch. So I agree there. Maybe they will. We don't really know at this point. But when it comes to Surface Pro, yeah, they can't do a P series in that one. And the P series is just like, I mean, okay, let me rephrase that. Technically, they could, because there's a lot of flexibility with the P series. But between the thermals and the battery life, like, you'd have a very powerful Surface Pro that just doesn't get great battery life and gets pretty hot too. Whereas I think the U series, they're going to have a lot more flexibility and still deliver, 20 to 40% performance improvement over last year's model, which is not insignificant, people. Like, that's a huge jump in performance. And I think for the audience for Surface Pro, I think it's fine. I know there's always this, like, tiny group of people who are like, I want a Surface Pro 9 to edit my 4K videos and be my main desktop PC for everything. And for some people, they can actually get away with that. But if you want to use it for, like, heavy CAD and, always rendering video, like, the Surface Pro is not meant for that. You just need a different device. So that's my take on it.
I think what a lot of people want is a Surface Pro that rivals the iPad Pro in regards to performance, because now the iPad Pro has the M1 in it. The Surface Pro sort of pales in comparison when it comes to performance. I think the P series would bring it up to par in performance, but certainly not in efficiency.
It would actually beat it.
Yeah, but not in efficiency, which has always been quite a big problem with the Surface Pro line. The Surface Pro line never gets great battery life. It's always sort of the biggest letdown for most people who buy one. So P series would just make that even worse, because they're not making it any thicker. It will be the same battery, just with a more hungry CPU. So yeah, I think U series does make sense, even though they certainly were prototyping it internally. They did have P series Pros in there.
And if what I've seen recently is true, like, this device is going to be thinner and sleeker than the Pro 8. Like, so Zach and I are kind of like going back and forth on this. I'm asking if he can sort of been able to verify. My take is on this. So his take is that the Pro 9 chassis is basically going to be the same, which historically is actually what Microsoft has done, right? They change the chassis, they stick with it for a couple of years. And the reason they do that is because of accessory makers. For instance, Bridge just released a new contraption that's a full keyboard system, which I'm reviewing. And, the idea is a Surface Pro 9 comes out, it'll fit into that too. And that really does make sense. And that's a big plus for Zach's argument. I'm just saying I saw something that I've never seen before, and it looked like a hybrid between the Surface Pro X and the Surface Pro 8s. So it had a thinner design, still had venting on it, but the Type-C ports were on the left side instead of the right with the Surface Connect. And it had it was a platinum color, but the edges had more of a shimmer to them. And like kind of like a polishy, like it looked kind of like iPad-ish almost. I couldn't tell with the bezels. They looked thinner to me, but honestly, the screen wasn't on, so I couldn't really tell you. It was it's really hard to eyeball that, but it just looked like a slightly thinner, sleeker looking and more rounded. Everything was more curvy and rounded on the device itself. I don't know what I saw. Maybe that's Surface Pro 10.
Yeah.
For all I know. It really could be, right? We don't know. So this is what's going to make the event interesting, of course, right? It's we could place bets. Who's right on this? Is Zach right, or is what I saw right? I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me, right, if they're merging Pro X into Pro 8s, that they actually merge it into like the more similar design and not just the processor, right? Because what makes the Pro X cool wasn't ARM.
No, yeah.
It was, but it was the design. It was so thin. Yeah. And it was, had this like cooler design that Pro 8 got close to, but Pro 8 is thicker. So if they wanted to do that, actually combine those two chassis designs and like kind of do a hybrid. And don't forget, so why did they put two Type-C ports on the Pro X on the left side? Whereas on the Pro 8, it's on the right. So there must have been a reason for that. And my hunch is. It just has to do with the board design
Yeah.
of the Pro X and the way ARM works and the way they had to lay it out. So again, if they're combining those chassis and they're going to use an ARM processor in one of them, they may be wanting to repeat that same move and having the ports on one side, and maybe with Intel, of course, with Intel, they could probably move stuff around more easily. I don't know. So, but I can see this, what I saw as being their goal with these devices, to actually merge not just the processor, but design aspects too. But who knows? Who knows what I saw?
Yeah, we'll have to see about that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting though. But I'm very excited about the Pro Series, obviously. Yeah. And let's talk about the other rumor too. This one's super interesting. This also came from WinFuture, which again got it from retail. So they're saying there's new colors: forest, which is a green, and then what was the other one? Oh, it's not ice blue. Oh,
forest green and sapphire blue.
Oh, sapphire, which is a blue. So instead of ice blue, it would be sapphire. In fact, Laptop Go 2 comes in sage green. Yeah. This would be forest green. Who knows what the actual differences are? So what makes those colors interesting? You'd be thinking we're talking about laptop. No, we're talking about Surface Pro.
Yeah, this is shocking.
So Surface Pro historically has been, it's been black for a long time.
Yeah.
And then it went to platinum. And then they brought back black. And black got really good in the last two releases because they managed to kind of get away with the fingerprints and make a more of a matte design. So that was the expectation. But a forest green or the blue sapphire blue, I'm even having a tough time in picturing it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I hope it's anodized aluminum and it's it's the color all the way through. That would be really awesome. And also it would bring a bit of fun back to the Surface Pro line, which has for the last, or basically forever, been boring because it's all sort of designed with contemporary sort of business use colors, whereas blue and green would bring a little bit of life back to it, sort of Lumiere almost. I don't think they'll be as vibrant, but I'm sure they'll be more muted. But still, I like a blue Surface Pro. Let me buy that. I'm buying that today.
Yeah, and I think the anodized aluminum, I think that would be the way to go, which is kind of like what Apple's been using on their devices.
Your mic has changed, by the way.
That's because my headphones switched. Hold on.
Well, while you figure that out, let me move on to the other device that we're expecting, Surface Studio 3. Unfortunately, I know not very much about this device. I don't know if it's going to have a new design. You would hope. It has been 4 years, but we really just don't know really anything about it other than the fact that it's coming this fall. I did hear it might have an 11th gen chip, but I heard that over a year ago. So that I would hope has changed. It may not have, but it also may have. We just don't know. But it will be certainly a more modern chip than what's in the current Studio 2, which is a 7th gen Kaby Lake processor. At the very least, the Studio 3 will have a Tiger Lake chip. Hopefully, it will be Alder Lake of some kind. I would like to see Microsoft sort of position all of the Surface products in order of power, with the Studio 3 being the most powerful. In an ideal world, the Studio 3 would have an Intel H series chip. The next laptop Studio would have an Intel P series chip. Then the laptop and the Pro would have U series chips, I guess, or maybe the 15-inch laptop has a P series one as well. And then the Go and stuff has Intel processor, whatever they called it, like the new lower end stuff. Oh, actually, to be fair, the Go 4 I would like to see is Snapdragon 7C. It's about time, but unfortunately, we're not expecting a Go 4 this fall, unfortunately. Actually, on that subject, we should talk about what we aren't expecting. No Laptop Studio 2, no Surface Go 4, no Surface Duo 3, no Surface Neo, no Headphones 3, no Laptop SE 2, and no Surface Laptop Go 3. So those are unlikely to be there. I'm pretty confident we won't be seeing a Duo 3. I'm pretty confident we won't be seeing a Laptop Studio 2. And I'm pretty confident we're not seeing a Go 4 because those are on the docket for next year. So there you are.
Simple explanation. Yeah. I've been using the Surface Laptop Studio recently a lot too. And I still just love that laptop. I just... Like as much as, and of course my big thing is I prefer to have 5G, but I just love the design, the battery life on it, and them getting 12th or even 13th gen into it for next year, I think would be amazing. Actually, I think it'll be a really nice addition. So I'm okay with waiting though, but they typically wait 18 months on those the larger device, basically the bigger device, the longer they tend to wait. So I think that's fine. Getting back to the Pro 9 though, yeah, the different colors I think will be really interesting. I'm excited about it. I think like I said, I'm still having a tough time envisioning it because it's so weird. I don't know why. I just can't picture a forest green Surface Pro, but I'm here for it, man. I think it's about time that they kind of go down that route. It's cool that they did it on laptop, of course. I don't know. Well, between that and then ARM, like there's the Pro 9 this year could be the big story.
I think it will be because it is 10 years of Surface, and they did start with the Surface Pro. Well, technically the RT, but that design was also the Surface Pro.
Like but they announced them all at the same time.
Yeah, the Surface RT and Pro locked together. So the Pro is 10 years old this year. Well, technically January would be 10 years for Surface Pro.
Surface, yeah.
But the Surface Pro is what made Surface exist for as long as it has, thanks to the success of the Surface Pro. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Surface Pro is the sort of highlight for Microsoft this year. Though it will also be nice to see new laptops and new studios as well. Going real quick back to the laptop news, if there is any Intel, I'm wondering if it's not a laptop 5, but more a laptop 4 Plus with a new laptop design coming next year, similar to what they did with the Surface Pro. Because if they were to significantly redesign the Surface laptop, I think they might want to give sort of a hint that is coming, but it's not here yet. So here's laptop 4 Plus with 12th gen Intel. Next year, we'll be back with the laptop 5, which has a new design, Ryzen, Intel, and the whole lot. But that's next year. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's something to stick a pin in terms of naming and how they address it. Yeah, we don't really know much about the Surface laptop, quote unquote 5 or whatever is coming. Which, again, I know Panos Panay and the Surface team hate all the leaks, which is fair. I agree, but like again, I think. Although we know the main categories of devices here, devil's in the details, right? So even like the Surface Studio 3, okay, we know it's coming. Spoiler, but at the same time, like, that could be a significant redesign of that hardware we don't know. Or maybe it's the same. We really don't know anything about it, and that's going to make that October 12th event pretty exciting. Same with, Surface Earbuds 2, right? Like if those actually are coming out, they've had a couple of years now, literally, to rethink that device. The pros and cons, the reviews were definitely mixed on them in terms of people liked the comfort of them and the reliability and everything. But in terms of where earbuds are right now in 2022, those things don't hold a candle to where everybody has moved to. So the question is, what has Microsoft done to those to keep people interested? And I'm interested in them, and they obviously listen to feedback and stuff. So the question is, are they just going to keep them the same and they get a longer battery life now, or are they going to have significantly rethink the way they look? Are they smaller? Did they change the circle? Like there's all sorts of questions there. So I think all this is going to be exciting. I'm very, like I said, though, my heart is for it always will be with the Surface Pro device. And yeah, this year between possibly new colors, the ARM thing, Dan's theory about a chassis redesign, could make this one of the most exciting Surface Pros, and I'm here for it because I still love that device. It's still one of my favorite PCs of all time.
I'll probably be ordering the Qualcomm version because I prefer that one.
Of course, the question now is, the colors, because even with the colors with the last version, the platinum and black, like some were available, like, are you going to be will Zach be able to order a Sapphire ARM version, right? That'll be the question, or is that going to be only Intel only and stuff like that? So who knows? We'll have to find out. And the mystery of laptop, what's going on with that. The AMD stuff, I'm nothing against AMD. I do feel like some of their stuff is a little overhyped in the laptop space.
You're such a hater. You're such an AMD hater, Dan.
I know. But to be fair, I haven't used the new processors, so I have reserved judgment. But one of the reasons I haven't used the new processors is because almost all the new laptops coming out don't have AMD. So it makes it very difficult. The only ones, the big ones that have come out have been the new ThinkPad Z13 and Z16 are running those. Although we have a few other HP laptops too that are using them. Anywho, that is the Surface stuff. So I actually hope there's no more leaks between now and then. I really do want to have this event and have general surprises for people, and I really do hope that happens. And because I don't want to make Panos any more mad.
All right. Well, if I find anything out, I won't tell you.
Oh yeah, no, you can tell me. It's more about the audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there we go. All right, let's go to the bigger news, or not the bigger news, but kind of interesting news. Of course, the Surface Dude.
You keep saying Surface Dude.
I know, Surface Dude. We did this story a couple of weeks ago. Came out that Surface Duo 2 is increasingly hard to find for the five of you who want to buy one. I actually joke around about that, but I've seen way more interest in Duo 2 in the last couple of weeks. A lot of people in the forums and Reddit and stuff like that are actually saying they're looking to get one. So the problem is you can't now. So what's the reason here? I had this theory that maybe it's because the Android 12L, they want to reflash them. Maybe they're going to even update the hardware slightly. They could do that, do some minor improvements to the hardware and internal processing. They could call it even the Surface Duo 2 Plus or something. So we had those theories, and then Zach said, well, it could just be supply chain, of course, as well. And part of this was probably because they did an original order for a Surface Duo 2, an original run. And what was the plan, Zach, originally for fall 2022? Was it going to be the Surface Duo 2 Lite, or was it going to be a Surface Duo 3 initially?
It would have been Duo 2 Lite for this fall. I'm sure originally that wasn't the case, but then the Duo 2 Lite was on the docket for a while. So yeah, this fall would have been Duo 2 Lite, and then next fall would be Duo 3 flagship.
Yeah, so we've always been talking about with this release, especially after Duo 1, they really controlled the availability and the stock of this device so that you wouldn't have to do fire sales. If you noticed, the lowest the Duo 2 is dropped down to is $999, and you can't get it like Duo 1, which you can get for $300 and then even cheaper sometimes on eBay. So they've been avoiding that by controlling inventory very strictly. But the problem with that too is if they were planning to sort of bring out the new Duo 2 Lite or something else around this time, it makes sense that the stock would be running low. But as it turns out, Microsoft finally got back to me, and it turns out Zach's theory was correct. It is a supply chain issue. They said, quote, "We are experiencing supply constraints that are impacting stock of Surface Duo 2 units." So they could have just left it at that, and that would have been the end of that. And then people would have still speculated like, well, that sounds like an excuse. But then they go on to say the product is not being discontinued. Okay, well, that's pretty definitive. They didn't just close up shop and said, we'll come back to this later. And then he said, we continue to update and to innovate on this form factor and are excited by customer interest. That's a really interesting sentence that we can parse a little bit. We can continue to update. That's not a surprise. In fact, they've guaranteed like 3 years of updates. And we know Android 12L is coming to Surface Duo 1 and Surface Duo 2. So that's not a surprise. And to innovate on this form factor. I guess you could innovate on this form factor with software, but it really sounds more like the hardware aspect, right? That they're really thinking about, what they can do with this design. And, we've alluded to that in the past with maybe they're going to look at a single foldable display with the similar aspect ratios, but using software to basically create a dual screen experience. Or they're going to go down the route, continue using the dual screen form factor, maybe with some modifications and improvements. So they're obviously continuing with that, and excited by customer interest. Okay, so that's just a boilerplate kind of thing. So, but I think it was a really interesting comment because they definitively said it's not being discontinued. Yeah. We're having supply chain stuff, and we talked about that previously. The displays are custom. A lot of board components are custom. A lot of the hinge and wiring is custom on this device. In fact, this is across the board on all Surface devices that makes them so unique. Like for years, with the Surface Pros, they were using 3x2 displays. They were the only ones in the industry to use 3x2 displays, which means they had to make them custom design. Now you're starting to see finally in the last year or two more 3x2 designs, which is nice. But everything they do on their hardware is customized, which is what allows them to push design, to the extremes. It's also an explanation of why they're so expensive. because it's not cheap to do runs of custom-made hardware, which is why it's not a coincidence. Like this year, you saw a lot more OLED displays in laptops. That's because Samsung decided to make 14-inch and 16-inch OLED displays in mass. And then when Lenovo was like, we're going to make a new laptop, what you got? Samsung could be like, we got this kind of display. And like, all right, we're going to build around that display. And then they come down in price, right? So now an OLED display, which used to be super expensive, is now like normally priced for premium laptops. So I think this is a fine explanation. What we don't know, of course, is any timeline on when the Surface Duo 2 will come back to stores, because you can't really find it at Best Buy right now. And last I checked, you couldn't order it from Microsoft.com, either for consumer or business. Also, the accessories are hard to find as well. I'm still curious if they'll have, a relaunch for around 12L. And by relaunch, I mean like a soft relaunch, just, talking about 12L and the new improvements with the Duo 2. And Zach, I mean, what do you think the odds are that they even did minor hardware revisions to this device?
I don't think it's likely. I feel like I would have heard that was a plan at this point, but as far as I'm aware, there isn't. I assume what you're referring to is something like an updated processor, maybe slightly new cameras, but the design stays the same. I don't think so. I really don't. I think what's more likely is they will restock these with Android 12L preloaded, and maybe they'll spend 5 minutes at the Surface event just talking about the year of Duo 2, how it's been so far. / here's some updates on the Android 12L. They'll show the new UI, maybe some updated pen options and whatnot. Maybe the new Windows 365 Continuum mode, which I've heard is coming. And then that will just sort of be that for the Duo, and then they'll put that to a side, and then they'll start talking about new things. That's the only sort of thing I can see happening if they choose to talk about Duo at all. They might not. Again, this is, there is no new Duo this fall, just the software update. So maybe they won't. Maybe they just will wait. Just do that. Do the whole stop thing quietly.
Yeah, I think what you just said, like this, like kind of 5 minute, status on Surface Duo 2, because
it would be nice
if they don't mention it, even though we have this statement, it's being discontinued. Yeah. We continue to innovate on this form factor. The press is going to be like, wow, they didn't mention Duo at all. I guess it's dead. Mm-hmm. But if they say something like, in Surface Duo 2, it's doing better than we expected. We've really worked on the software. We've had a lot of positive reaction from, they may even talk about, satisfaction with the device, because they do that a lot with Surface devices. So user satisfaction ratings, maybe they're very good or have improved, and they might tout that. Don't laugh. And then, of course, talk about Android 12L coming out and all that kind of stuff. So even if I think they should just do something small on that, just to keep media from, speculating, because they'll probably ignore this quote we just put out.
I will say that the quote they did provide was a lot more than they needed to give us. They could have ended it at, we plan to make more. It's not discontinued, whatever it was. But no, that bit at the end with, we are continuing to innovate and update this form factor is almost code for, yes, we are working on the next Surface Duo or the next Surface Android foldable phone. It's a sort of, if it's read between the lines, it's them responding to people who are questioning whether or not this form factor is dead, or this sort of line of products is dead. And they're saying no, that, we will make another version at some point. It's not happening now, but it will happen. We are working on it. Surface Duo 3, or whatever they end up calling it. It may not be called Duo 3. Is something that they want to continue to invest in and will continue to do so. So that should hopefully shut up all the haters.
Hopefully, yeah. And this isn't a battle between like Samsung and Microsoft. And Microsoft takes their time on stuff. They're not. We've addressed this issue before. They're not here to necessarily compete. They're here to sort of just do their own thing, set a standard, and just offer something different from everybody else. And they don't really feel, I think, the pressure to like, oh, we have to release this, now because we need to compete with everybody. That's not the goal of these devices. So they're never going to beat Samsung. They're never going to beat Apple, but they know that that's not the goal of these devices. It's to sort of, act as the best experience you can get if you use the Microsoft ecosystem. That's their whole rationale for these things. So, Cool stuff. Well, we'll address that in the coming weeks at least, and hopefully we'll hear more about Android 12L for Duo 1 and Duo 2 as well. Let's move on to Logitech. They announced the G Cloud handheld, which is kind of interesting. Now, if you've caught this podcast before, I've talked about this stuff before previously, that it wasn't this device though, but I've seen similar devices from other OEMs that are like this, which is basically a handheld. It looks like a Steam Deck, but it's obviously thinner device with a nice display on it. And its sole purpose is for game streaming. So it doesn't download the games to the device itself. It instead relies on Wi-Fi. There were experiments with these with 5G as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see those. This one does not have 5G though. So it has 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of internal storage, which is only UFS, micro SD expandable storage slot. It runs a Qualcomm Snapdragon 720G with a 2.3 gigahertz CPU. It has the regular Xbox controllers, ABXY, face buttons, a D-pad, left and right joysticks, bumpers and triggers, and left and right optional buttons, a G menu button, Android home button, because this does run a flavor of Android is what it does. It has haptic feedbacks, a 3D gyroscope, and a light sensor, which is really nice. So it'll auto adjust your display. Wireless connectivity, it's Wi-Fi 2x2 MIMO. It's 802.11 ABGNAC, not AX, surprisingly. Bluetooth 5.1. 5.3, I believe, is out now. So that's a little, I would have preferred 5.2, but that's okay. USB has a USB 3.1 Type-C port as well. The display, it's a 7-inch IPS screen, multi-touch. So it's a touch display, which is nice. 450 nits of brightness, which is pretty solid, actually. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good, especially for indoor gaming. You'll be totally fine. It's a full HD display. Only a 60 hertz refresh. That's a bit of a bummer. I wouldn't have said no to a 90 hertz at least, but perhaps they're prioritizing battery life here. You do get a stereo headphone jack, 3.5 millimeter stereo speakers, and has a 6,000 milliamp battery for up to 12 hours of cloud gaming at 50% volume and 50% brightness. Nice that they put that in there for the actual context. And it's up to 830 hours standby time, which is actually really good. Steam Deck, as cool as it is, has terrible standby time. It'll go dead on you in a couple of days if you don't charge it. It has quick charging 3.0, so it takes up to 2.5 hours for a complete charge. It weighs 463 grams, so that's about twice as much as your smartphone. And it runs Android 11 with Google Play and over-the-air updates. It runs Google services, Xbox Game Pass, NVIDIA GeForce Now, and Steam Link all on there. So pick and choose your flavor of gaming. Retail price, $349, but you can order it even through the Microsoft Store. Let's see if it's that price at Microsoft Store. You can get it at least through Amazon for $299 instead, which is not too bad. And it's $299 too at the Microsoft Store. It is only in white at this time. But what do you think about this device, Zach? Too early?
I don't know. It's an interesting idea. It runs Android 11, in case you were wondering. So it's not Surface Duo is not the only device on Android 11. This is shipping with Android 11, so there you are. It's a cool idea. I don't know if I have much of a use for it. I'm still not really using Game Pass too much. I don't need to. I have a game console next door with a massive 65-inch TV connected to it, so I just play on that. But yeah, if you are an on-the-go gamer, I guess, if you're somebody who finds yourself traveling quite a lot and you do want to sort of rack up some achievements in Halo or something, this might be a good option for you, because it's the handheld. The controls are built in. It's not on your phone, where if you don't have controllers with you, or it doesn't provide its own touch controls, you can't play it. It's all baked in, so that's super nice. Plus it's an Android thing, right? So you can run more than just Game Pass. You could run, I guess, Steam Link, and maybe even Android games locally on the device if it's powerful enough to run them, which I assume it will be.
Yeah, so people have definitely mixed feelings about this. I'm actually all for it, and here's why. Well, first of all, people are like, just use your phone. Just like when I talk about the value of a 5G laptop, just use your phone. I don't want to use my phone. For one, this has a 7-inch display. All right. That's a pretty big display compared to your phone. And it has dedicated controllers. You don't need to drop your phone into this weird thing. Granted, your phone would have better specs, right? You could do like a Samsung, get a 120 hertz display, and OLED and all that kind of jazz. But for having a 7-inch full HD touchscreen in this thin and kind of comfortable form factor, I think is great. But the thing is, it's battery life. The problem with like using your phone for heavy gaming is it kills the battery life. And it's like, that's when you're traveling, battery life is king, man. Like I know it's becoming more convenient at airports where you can plug stuff in and recharge and save on the airplane, but it's not something you prefer not to do. When I was just traveling to Israel, and it took me 20 hours to get home. I didn't mention that last time. Wow. 20 hours from door to door. I was pretty conscious of my phone and keeping it leveled off. And if I wanted to game, granted it was a duo, although you can game pretty well in a duo, but like that wouldn't have been my first priority because I would only zap my battery on this thing. Okay, I can plug it in. Yeah, great. Now I got to think about that. I like the idea of a dedicated device that's just for gaming, which is why Steam Deck is so cool. But Steam Deck is significantly more expensive, significantly more massive in terms of size and weight. And the battery life, of course, is not going to be that good on it. Depending on the type of game you're playing, you can get like maybe 2 hours on a real AAA title. You can get around 4 or 5 hours if you're doing a more, streamlined game. But the way I was thinking about it, like I didn't take my Steam Deck to Israel because it just took up too much space in my bag. This thing would take up less space. I also knew I wasn't really going to probably game on the airplane because I was mature this time and actually slept on the airplane. And that worked so much better instead of trying to stay up for the whole flight. But I wouldn't mind having this device. So when I got to the hotel at night, when I had an hour to kill and just to relax from the day, I would have connected up to the Wi-Fi and I could have gamed that way. That would have been a cool experience. Now, it's $300. That's not cheap. But then again, a lot of kind of new technology is like that, right? It's similar with a 5G laptop. Not everybody needs it. Yeah, you can use your phone as a hotspot, but it's the same problem. Your phone's going to get hot. You're going to drain the battery. The speed and performance is not nearly as good as native 5G built into the laptop itself. Not everybody can afford it. That's fine. I mean, it's nice to have these options out there. But, I'd like to see a version with this eventually, of course, with 5G in it. As, 5G has been kind of a letdown in terms of performance, but maybe it'll get better. Definitely 6G is already being, worked on. I think these devices have a role. They won't be for everybody. A lot of people will be like, I'm just going to buy a goofy joystick thing to drop my phone in and I'll use that and damn the battery life. I'll carry around a battery pack, which then it's like, well, if you're going to carry around a battery pack, what's the difference in carrying around an extra device with a controller on it? So I'm actually pretty excited about this. I know people could complain about the price, but I'm tired in tech of people complaining about pricing. It's like, if you don't want it, don't buy it. You can't afford it, get a better job. I don't mean to be mean or, blunt about this stuff, but it's true. Like, tech is always this way. Like, you want an electric car 5 years ago, they were super expensive and hard to get. They're much easier to get today and definitely more affordable. Oh, you wanted an OLED TV years ago, they were super expensive. Oh, now you want an OLED 65 or OLED 70. All this stuff trickles down. So you just gotta chill. That's just the way tech is. And so, I don't know. All this technology gets better. I think it's kind of cool, though. I wouldn't be surprised, of course, to see other companies. Razer technically announced one of these, but it was only for developers or something like that. I can't imagine Razer. They have to be rethinking this at some point. Like, we should just release a consumer version because Razer could do some cool stuff here. And you can see some innovation. You can see the specs dropping maybe even lower to bring down that price, but you can also see someone bumping up the specs, right? And sure, it'll affect the battery life, but yeah, why not go for like a 2K display that's OLED? With 5G built in, right? Now you're going to get a really good experience. You're also going to pay a lot more money for it, right? Then you get to that like probably $599 category or $499, and then it's like, well, why don't I just buy a Steam Deck at that point? But you still get the size and the lightness benefit. So I don't know. I think competition's good here. I'm excited to see this. I might be reviewing this device. I was talking to Jez about it because it's, I think, US only at the time, or it's only
that's what I was just looking at. It's US only, so it's dead to me.
Yeah, but there was another company that had one of these. I actually held it, I played it, and this was a year ago. So we'll see more of these, but that device didn't come out, and because the deal fell apart, and I don't want to go into more details about it because I can't name any of this stuff, but the deal fell apart behind it and some of the partners that they're going to work with, because the stuff it's very early, but someone had to take the leap. I didn't think it would be Logitech, to be honest. That kind of came out of nowhere, but Logitech's taking a risk with this, because as you can see from the reaction from people, not everybody thinks this is an immediate hit, but I think for some people, this is going to be kind of a cool device. Logitech's going to find out, and I think that's pretty cool of them. And if it bombs, and we don't do this. We'll see what happens. So I don't know, kind of neat. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be reviewing it in the coming weeks. All right. Unless Zach, you have anything else to say on that?
No, I don't think so. My last thoughts are, I just hope Microsoft builds one of these one day, like a Surface, or
sure.
I guess Xbox more. An Xbox branded handheld would be nice.
Yeah. Again, you can't. It'd be shocking to think that Microsoft wouldn't be thinking about doing this, and especially bringing their level of haptics, because they could bring literally the Xbox controller haptics tuned perfectly to such a device. You got the Surface team to help design it, give it some cutting edge thing. Of course, they'll probably they could tie it into Xbox Game Pass subscription, right?
Yeah.
They could have a higher tier that pays it off, basically, so you get it for free.
Yeah.
Free in quotes.
That'd be
But
great.
you pay maybe like $24 a month for it for 2 years or something like that. They'd be dumb not to be going down that route, but we'll see what happens. It is Microsoft. That's why you're laughing. Because, hopefully they're listening to this. Be like, hey, that would be a great idea. Someone get on that.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. All right. Turning to review roundups real quickly. More Logitech. The Logitech G Pro Racing Wheel review. A phenomenal direct drive experience for all. Whew. A direct drive steering wheel. This is for the big boys and big girls out there who really want to get into steering while you're playing your video games. So this thing got a 5 out of 5. It's easy to set up and use. 11 Nm of power torque. Realistic true force feedback, compatible with hundreds of games. Again, it's too heavy and powerful for some office desks. That's really interesting. Imagine having a simulated steering wheel that's too heavy for a desk. No alternative wheels at launch, and it's a strictly USB connectivity. How much will this set you back? $599.
That's not cheap.
Oh, no. Sorry. Oh, that was wrong. Sorry. That was that's different. The Logitech sells the Pro Racing Wheel exclusively through its official website for $1,000.
You can't see it, but my mouth is wide open right now. My jaw has dropped. That is ridiculous.
That is and you can use this with Xbox, apparently.
Oh, great. That's literally 2 Xbox Series X's.
Yeah. So, $1,000 sold directly. I told you it's the Pro. This is for
pros,
the big boys and girls out there. Yeah, who really. Richard Devine would absolutely go crazy over this thing because he loves racing. So there you go. With the other pricing was you can get a set of companion Logitech G Pro pedals for $349, specifically designed for use with the Pro Wheel. And there's an upcoming collaboration with cockpit manufacturer Playseat. Will also feature a G Pro variation of its trophy rig, with Logitech G claims will be available soon for $599. This thing looks wild. Yeah, I know Ben was pretty gaga over testing this, and he just absolutely loves it. He's a big racing driving guy. He loves driving the trucks too, the truck simulator games. But this thing is, this thing looks like a serious wheel for $1,000 though. Yeah, it should be. Acer Predator Triton 500 SE review. So this is a sleek gaming laptop that falls behind some of the competition in raw performance. This only gets 3.5 out of 5. It was reviewed by Cale Hunt. And let's see, outstanding display with stacked gaming specs and accurate color coverage. Sleek look that fits gamers and professionals, loud speakers, no thermal throttling while gaming. It runs cool. Respectable battery life for a gaming PC. So what's the negative? Keyboard and camera are underwhelming. Fan noise can be a nuisance in higher performance modes. Underpowered compared to some competition, and soldered RAM, which is kind of interesting. This is so it runs a 12th gen Core i9 12900H, which is a really solid processor, 32 gigs of RAM, and the display is 16 inches with a 16 by 10 aspect ratio, which is kind of cool. It's a 2560 by 1600 resolution, so 2.5K, 240 gigahertz refresh rate. It's a cool looking laptop though. It's pretty tame looking for Acer in terms of design, but it's also a familiar look to them. But you can go read that review. Logitech Litra Beam Studio. Logitech Litra Beam. These are studio lights from Logitech. Why are we doing so much Logitech stuff lately? But these are just cool side lights that kind of flex and all that. It's for use for people who, if you're on a webcam a lot, whether game streaming or in your office, and you, basically want to brighten up the scene a little bit, this is something you'll want to check out. It's flexible lighting, basically, which is kind of cool. So a lot of options out there, depending on how you want to do that stuff. Zach reviewed Windows 11 22H2.
I did,
so
yeah.
if you're curious about Windows 11 and the latest update, Zach went through that. He gave it 4 out of 5. Let's see, we also reviewed Hard Space, a game for Xbox, which is a revolutionary blue-collar job simulator. That's hilarious. 4.5 out of 5, though, so that may be worth checking out. It's called Hard Space. The Xiaomi Notebook Pro 120G. I kind of actually missed this review. Harish reviewed this one. He gave it 4 out of 5. So it's Xiaomi's best notebook yet. It's a 14-inch screen with an excellent color vibrancy and a fast 120 hertz refresh rate. Zach's ears just perked up. The Intel hardware is reliable in daily use, and there's a great keyboard. You also get a generous amount of memory and storage. The design is minimalist, there's no bloatware, and Xiaomi have even added Thunderbolt 4 connectivity. That said, the notebook struggles during intensive workloads and AAA gaming, and the battery life is strictly average. It's a great choice if you need a well-designed notebook for productivity, but you'll need to look elsewhere if you need a gaming-focused option. This is actually a pretty slick-looking laptop. It is definitely, I'm going to guess, very Mac-looking. Yeah, it kind of is. It looks like a cross between a Mac and a Huawei-type laptop. Runs a 12th Gen Core i5 12450H processor. So this is a high-end 45-watt chip, 14-inch display, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, 16 gigs of RAM. But it's a pretty sharp-looking device. It definitely, when you look top down, it looks like a Mac. That's what those the Chinese brands tend to do. Xiaomi though does make good stuff. I like their hardware. So I think that does it for hardware reviews. Go check those out from the hard work at the Windows Central team, who always make me proud. All right, Zach, I guess we're kind of nearing the end of the podcast here. Thing of the week. Did you think of anything for the thing of the week?
I haven't watched anything or done anything fun this week. All I did was work. So sadly not.
Fair enough. My thing of the week is something that I can't believe I bought. It is the new Bose Quiet Comfort earbud. Now, I don't even know the names of these things. Is it the Quiet Comfort Earbuds 2? Is that the name of them? Earbuds. Yes, the Quiet Comfort Earbuds 2. So these are Bose's latest earbud that just came out. They go for a remarkable price of $300, which I was like, okay. But here's the thing. So I actually bought these. Bose didn't send them to me. Bose doesn't talk to me, which is, I should talk to them because they're literally here in Massachusetts. This is where they're based out of. I pass their headquarters sometimes. They should just be giving these things to me. But I've always been happy with Bose. I've had the Quiet Comfort QC2 over-the-ear headphones for years. I do want to get the newer ones because those are still micro USB charging, which is gross, but they're just darn reliable. And they still have the best ANC out there, and they're extremely comfortable. Every day at the gym, I use the Bose Sports earbuds, and previously I had the Sports Free Sport, they call them. It was the previous generation version of them. And I wear them because I like their sound profile, and they're just comfortable. My issue with a lot of headphones is how long can I wear them for? You know, Bose, I've never had an issue. And when it comes to earbuds, you and I have talked about this. it's one reason I kind of actually like these Lenovo ones. They do go into the ear canal, the Lenovo's, but Bose don't. Bose have this like they go on the like the outside of your ear canal and form like a kind of a little bit of a seal, but they don't go into your ear canal and then use that to hold the earbud in place. I hate those because I get ear canal fatigue after a while. Plus, they can loosen up. I just don't like that design. But Bose never uses that. So these kind of set on the outside of your ear canal. And they switched up the fin system this time. So they use fins to keep it in your ear by like basically pushing against the structure of your inner ear. They used to have like it was a fin in the ear tip in one thing. And they would give you like 3 versions in the box, small, medium, and large, of course. Now they've separated them out. So you can mix and match. You can put a bigger ear tip and a small fin, or you can put a large fin and a small ear tip. And the new design is just fantastic. And these things are like, listen, I can't tell you if they're worth $300. It really depends on how often you're going to use them. I'm just going to say I'm pretty blown away by them. So the big benefit here, of course, is their active noise cancellation. You put them in and, everything goes kind of silent. Is it as good as an over the ear? Of course not. Over the ear itself is a noise canceling, right? So they're going to work better. But these are really good for noise canceling. And then there is what they call the active mode. And so you can just press the side. I'm wearing them on the video podcast right now if you're watching. And you can just press and hold the side for a second, and it'll switch the mode to active. When you go to active, it literally doesn't sound like you're wearing earbuds anymore. Like, it just sounds like you don't have earbuds on.
Wow.
But, and you can hear everything while playing your music or listening to a conference call or doing whatever you want. It's like, so last night I'm on the couch watching TV, and from the laptop, the SO, she's sleeping on the couch. She has this thing where she can fall asleep on the couch, and she loves sleeping on the couch every night. She's like an old man. She wants the TV on, but she gets really mad if I start playing something on my laptop. so I can't watch a YouTube video. So I put these on, and I did that. I did the active so I can watch the video, hear the TV a little bit, or hear her or the dog or something like that. It was brilliant. I was just like, holy cow, this is like the solution for everything. Obviously they're completely wireless to get good battery life so far. And then the more interesting thing was I took them to the gym last night, and these aren't like advertised as like the sport buds, which I have the sport buds, right? That's their points, which I think have a little bit better IPX rating. These are IPX4. But I took these to the gym, and man, I was just like, damn, I think I'm going to have to sell the other ones or do something with them, which I only bought a couple months ago. But they were really, really good at the gym. Like I'm just going to, I think, continue to use them at the gym. They stayed in. I don't do like heavy cardio, but, I'm lifting weights. I'm going on my back. I'm doing all that kind of stuff. And when, you're lifting weights, like your ears and face flex and all that, like these weren't popping out. They stayed in. In fact, they're more comfortable than the sport ones. Plus, now I'm getting noise cancellation, which I actually really kind of do like. But if I don't want noise cancellation, I could go to active. And again, it just sounds like I'm just really wearing regular earbuds. And I'll put this up into a review over the next couple of days. So what are the negatives? Well, $300 obviously is expensive. The case it's a bit chonky, but you do get, I think, 24 hours of complete usage out of them. I think it's 6 hours per charge. It is Type-C. They did put a pairing button on it, thankfully. I hate headphones that don't actually put a pairing button on the case. It's like some weird system. So simple to pair. They did get rid of the wireless charging in the case, though. I don't care about that. I don't use wireless charging at all anymore. But I get it for people who do and would prefer it. And the fact was the old version did have it. So it's no longer here for whatever reason. I think just would have added too much space or something like that. You can use one headphone at a time, but as what happened during the call, looked like after about 30 minutes, the headphone turned off. So you can't leave one in the case. You'll have to have the other one in your pocket or something like that to keep it active. It also doesn't do multi-pairing. So you can't be on your PC and phone at the same time and toggle between them, which is why I like the Lenovo so much. But it's not hard to reconnect to a device. You can just go to the Bluetooth and hit connect, and it'll just take over. It's been pretty consistent like that. Those are kind of really the biggest negatives to them. I like the EQ. The sound profile has been great. The options are nice. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think I'm definitely keeping these. I was like pretty hesitant. They do have a, I want to say like a 90-day return policy if you buy them through Bose, or 45-day. It's like some like pretty long return policy on them. If so,
You might need that if the Surface Earbuds 2 come out next month.
yeah. Although I'd be shocked, if they beat the Bose.
Sure.
But you're right.
Yeah.
They could be something more up my alley too. But I really always enjoyed Bose. They do the best ANC in my opinion. These are just, they kind of tick all the boxes for me. They're kind of the one earbud I need. Oh, and the other cool thing too, I know this is a big deal. As I was saying, I was watching YouTube videos on my laptop. No, there is no delay. The sync was perfect between it. And so that was cool. And I believe it's Bluetooth 5.3. So they're pretty forward looking on these. But yeah, no delay. So I was watching YouTube and it was just perfect. I was just like, this is the dream, man. So yeah, those are the Bose Quiet Comfort Earbuds 2, which literally just came out. They're in black. The white version, the off-white version, is coming out in a couple weeks, but I think I'll stick with the black. So that's my quick review. I'll try to put something up on Windows Central, maybe next week or something like that if I have time. But there you go. That's my thing of the week. All right. We'll get positioned now to Q&A with the audience. If you have questions about the podcast, what we just talked about, or other things, you can start firing those off in the chat, and we'll start entering those. If you're listening to this recorded, you don't get to hear that, but you can go watch the video on our YouTube channel at Windows Central, and you can fast forward to the end and probably watch it there. As always, we do record this live Fridays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, usually with a Jez Corden. Hopefully he'll be back next week. Follow me at Twitter at Daniel_Rubino and Zach at ZACBOWDEN, and we can answer your questions there. Stay tuned for all the Surface info in the next coming weeks, as I'm sure we'll have it. Take care, everyone.
Wicked. So, yes, if you have any questions, now's the time to ask them. We'll hang around for a few minutes and do our best to answer them. Man, I am so glad it's Friday.
Yeah, although I still got work to do this weekend, unfortunately.
Any idea if Microsoft will make an authenticator app for Windows 11? I think there were plans to at one point, but this was years ago, and I'm pretty sure
really?
plan. Yeah.
Every time I asked them, they said no because it was some security.
Yeah, no, it's because it's no longer two-factor if it's on the same device. That's the big problem. If you're trying to authenticate, the whole point is you authenticate using a different device. So that's probably why it's not happening. But I remember there was a conversation on Twitter because remember Windows Phone had an authenticator app, the UWP thing. There were talks of bringing the UWP to desktop, and there were arguments for and against it. And I'm assuming the argument against won over, and the argument being, well, it's no longer two-factor. it's one factor.
Yes. Yep. So are those Bose earbuds better than the last Bose ones? As far as I didn't have the last ones, but the reviews I watch, yeah, they're smaller, and the sound profile is better and everything like that. And they changed up, like I said, the fin design and how they fit in your ear. So yeah, they seem to be a significant revision from the last version. So I know sometimes you can buy the old version for cheaper. But I don't know. I would probably go, if I could afford it, go with the second version because there's just so many more new changes. Unless you just really, really, really prize Qi wireless charging for the case, which for me I don't care, as I said. How modular do you expect the Studio 3 to be? Yeah, I don't know. We did see that patent a couple of years ago, with a very modular type design. In fact, that was before the Studio was even announced. Yeah, I mean, we literally don't know much about Studio 3. It could look exactly the same, just with updated specs, or they could have completely rethought how it is, and maybe it's a modular system. Honestly, we don't know. Same with the CPU. Zach heard 11th gen, but that was a year ago. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't see why they wouldn't be doing 12th gen, but then again, the Studio 3 is a pretty complicated device. I don't know. Hopefully it's 12th gen because there'll be way better performance.
Yeah.
But
any rumors about the Studio 3?
I don't know. Tune into the 12th.
Yeah. Any rumors on the Studio 3 screen size? Sadly not, but I think it will still be 28 inches. It won't be smaller than that.
Yeah.
If they increase it, it'll probably be 30, maybe 32, but it won't be any bigger than that. I'm probably going to guess 28 is probably where they're going to settle for again. Do you know how Android 12L is going to look on the Surface Duo? I do, and I have talked about it on the podcast last week or the week before. I've talked about it on the podcast recently, and I might do an article next week with just, writing basically what I said on the podcast. Pretty much the TLDR is they are updating a number of key areas of the UI, so the notification shade, for example, the settings app, a bunch of toggles and stuff with Windows 11 inspired design. So there's going to be more blur effects. The quick settings panel looks a lot like the control center on Windows 11, or quick settings on Windows 11 rather. Toggles look like the Windows 11 toggles do. There's a lot more blur effects, similar to the Miko effect on Windows 11. So all of that fancy stuff, more fluid animations. So when you swipe to go home, for example, instead of the app just sort of zooming out into the home screen, the app will float back into the icon that it came from. Small things like that are on the way. And it looks pretty cool, I believe.
Douglas is saying, I would enjoy a Surface Tower desktop PC. Well, that's because you're just imagining it as whatever you want it to be at this point. I don't know what, the question is, what could they do innovatively for a category that's really not that exciting, right? I mean, especially when you get to gaming PCs, there's some pretty crazy case designs you can do and custom builds. It's what can Microsoft bring to that category that would really push things that every other company that makes desktop PCs would stand back and oh, wow, we didn't think about that. I don't know. I mean, I don't see them going down that route, but maybe. I mean, I know what you're saying, in the sense that maybe they could do a mini design, or something thin, and flat that just lays down. It's a PC. I don't know. I guess they could do something there. It wouldn't be like a tower though, like what you're saying. I think it probably wouldn't even have a graphics card in that sense. It would just be an Ultrabook type PC that, I don't know. They can do something fun there, but it'd be different.
Will Microsoft have a beta of Android 12L? No. I feel like if they were going to do that, we'd have it by now. It's supposed to be coming out either next month or November. It's too late for a beta.
Yeah. And that answers the question about a date. We don't have a specific date, but we are expecting it either October or November. Someone's asked. Oh, go ahead.
Do you have an article about the upcoming Surface Duo 3? Not one for the immediate future. I will do one at some point, talking about what I know about the Duo 3. Probably waiting until after the October Surface event at this point. Because, hey, you never know. They might pull a Neo and be like, hey, here's what's coming next year. And then they'll show us the Duo 3. That'd be amazing. But I don't know if that will happen. And if it doesn't, then I will certainly do my own post talking about what I know about the Surface Duo 3.
Yeah, I doubt. I think they're kind of out of the game now.
They've been burned hard.
Teasing, yeah. Dan, what's your thought in regards to the fit of the Bose Earbuds 2 compared to the Surface Earbuds? Good question. Surface Earbuds are very comfortable, but I'm going to give it to Bose here. Like I said, that has to do with the fact that there's the ear tips and the fins are now separate, so you can mix and match them, which I think gives you more flexibility. But in terms of just staying in my ears and just comfort, yeah, these are solid, man. And like I said, because not that Surface Earbuds went into your ear canal, they don't. These don't either. They just form kind of a nice seal on the outside of the canal. It's just, I feel like I could wear these for a very long time and not have any comfort issues. This is a weird one. If you would compare Surface as a brand to a lifetime, where would you place Surface? Baby, toddler, teen, young adult, or adult? I mean, as a brand,
probably quite adult now. I'd say they've found their feet. I feel like.
Yeah, young adult or adult. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they've really found their. We know that they basically try things 3 times.
Yeah.
Usually to get it right. They don't feel market pressure to rush something out. Yeah. They only release things when they're fully confident in its design and execution. I don't know. they're still doing some crazy innovation, and it's thoughtful. Like I said, the Surface Laptop Studio, it's just like, I don't think people talk about it enough, but it's just like, it's such a nice laptop to use, despite it doesn't have a lot of the stuff Dan always talks about, right? It doesn't have 5G, doesn't have anti-reflective display, it's not OLED. But there's just something about the audio, the keyboard, the trackpad, the display, the way it moves, the way it looks. It's just something cool about it that it's just it's almost ineffable. But it's and I feel the same way about like a Surface Laptop 13 with Alcantara or the Surface Pro. I just like their designs are just, they could be lacking in like the latest features, but they just get the core functionality of what a PC is supposed to be so right so often. Yeah, so I think Zach's right. They just really kind of hit their stride now.
Hope there will be a Surface Go 4 with an 8CX. I highly doubt they'll be putting an 8CX in the Surface Go. If they are going to do ARM for the next Surface Go, it will be a 7C based chip. It won't be anything more powerful than that because the just pricing doesn't allow it. It needs to maintain that $399 starting price. That's the whole point. And then I assume if they were going to do higher tiers, they would have Intel be the higher one. So they'd do an M3 for the top tier one, and the 7C would be the entry level.
Would you suggest a Windows 11 ARM device to a non-techie relative yet? So
I would.
Yes, but the caveat, I would definitely try to get one with an 8CX Gen 3, which unfortunately there's only really one right now, which is the ThinkPad X113S. That's not really a device. I mean, anyone could use that device, right? It's not, you don't have to be a business person to use that device, but it is technically aimed at businesses. I love the damn thing though. I think it's awesome, both in terms of performance, its size, the keyboard, the display, the trackpad, even the audio, like everything about that thing I just really, really like about it. But that said, you know, if you wait for something like the new Surface Pro with ARM, I think that will be killer too. And that's more of a prosumer form factor, obviously. Maybe it's too advanced or even too expensive for a relative, but I would wait for that. Hopefully we'll see more 8CX Gen 3 devices coming, because I think that chip is really, really good. I think it really is a mainstream ARM processor, and Lenovo seems to think that because they put it in their ThinkPad for the first time, selling it to businesses, and apparently Microsoft thinks that too, as they're going to merge it into their both consumer and business lines. So up for the Surface Pro.
Zach, didn't you mention that Volterra will be at the Surface event too? I mentioned it in my What to Expect post. I'm not too sure if they'll talk about it on stage, but I have a good feeling that that device will start shipping around the same time as the new Surfaces. I think that's what they've been waiting for. They're just going to do a big hardware push, and that will sort of start shipping alongside the new Surfaces. They might spend a few minutes on it, especially if they plan to talk about the NPU. You know, they'll announce the Surface Pro 9 with the HCL or the SQ3, which will have an NPU built in, and then they'll maybe have a few minutes talking about what an NPU is, how developers can adopt it, and then they'll also bring out Volterra, which they've already announced, to say, you know, this is a great device for our developers, which you can order today. That's just a guess or assumption based on how they could incorporate that device into the event if they wanted to. But yeah, I have a strong feeling availability of Volterra will be around the same time as the other new Surfaces that start shipping this fall. Zach, did you get your iPhone 14 Pro? If so, what do you think? I actually cancelled my iPhone 14 Pro pre-order. I decided not to in the end. I was like, I'm not going to use it. I'll use the Duo. So I'm still here with the Duos. So there you are.
Yep. I didn't pre-order it, and then it kind of came out. I was like, let me see inventory, because I'm a sucker. If it's like available today, go pick it up. I'm like, all right, let me go. Let me go do that. Nope, because it's not available at all anywhere. Yeah. And if I order it now online, it's like October 20th. I'll get it. I'm just like, you know what? I don't care that much. And I'm like Zach, like I think I'll get the hardware, and it being Apple hardware, I'll be like, oh my God, it's so nice. And I'll be really blown away by it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the same software experience as my iPhone 12 mini. Mm-hmm. Like it's the same apps. Instagram's going to be the same. Telegram's going to be the same. Yeah, I know there'll be some hardware improvements, 120 hertz display, like, and I'll be wowed by that, but it's not going to be my primary phone. And so then it's sort of like, I don't know. It's hard to get excited over in that sense. Like the techie me gets excited about it, but then the person who knows how my daily life is going to go, it's not going to be as excited.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not going to get it. Like, I probably still will get it, but I'm not obviously in a rush to get it. I'd almost rather just wait till I can go to the store and pick one up and not have to order it and stuff like that. But I'm not like, jonesing for it at all. So, in fact, actually, related to that, and maybe we can talk about this next week on the podcast. I actually really like iOS 16. That said,
You do? Nice.
Yeah, well, the lock screen is just so much better. And what I mean by better is it's so caught up to where everybody else is. But like they put the notifications on the bottom now, and it's like such a better design. You can actually swipe stuff with your thumb, for instance. Yeah, you can only put a couple widgets on the screen, but it looks kind of cool. I like that dynamic weather lock screen and background that they have. I think it's kind of neat. It actually, on my 12 mini, feels faster and smoother. And that wasn't just after 24 hours. It's like I've been using it ever since, and it actually feels really smooth. So I like a lot of the little changes that they kind of did with it. The changes to watch I haven't noticed at all, so I can't really say anything about that. But iOS 16 I think is actually pretty nice. So yeah, there's something nice about that.
What's an NPU? An NPU stands for Neural Processing Unit, and it's it's either a separate chip or a chip built into the system on a chip that processors can hand off to for AI-based sort of enhancements to things like cameras, microphones, blah blah blah. So if you want to enhance the voice clarity or background blur or eye correction, all those sort of experiences and processes can be handed off to a separate NPU, so it doesn't render or process that on the main CPU. And that's a good thing for devices like Windows on ARM devices or devices with an ARM processor, because they're not super powerful to begin with. So being able to offload processors to something else to keep the main processor focused on the most important things, which is running programs and experiences and multitasking and rendering, all that stuff, that can keep doing that without being bogged down with the additional AI effects that you are applying to things like a microphone or a camera and stuff.
Yeah, and Intel is going big on these too, and they're doing a lot of technology, a lot of work around, adjusting the image to auto frame. Like the Dragonfly has auto framing on it, which is pretty wild. And they're also doing things with the background blur and all that. That's all with the NPU. Yeah, and the benefit there is, one, it's way better for battery life. The NPU is just more efficient because it's a dedicated chip for that process. It's also not using the main cores on the central processor, which also impacts. So you could do stuff that want to impact performance of the other apps that you're running at that same time. So yeah, NPUs are the way to go. We'll start seeing a lot more devices with those, and a lot of new technology that starts to leverage it.
I tried iOS for like an hour and hated it. Yeah, iOS, Apple software in general, I hate how they behave. I hate how they function, the functionality side of it. I love how they look. I certainly think iOS and macOS are the prettiest operating systems in their phone and PC spaces. But when you start using them, they just fall apart. I cannot stand, especially macOS. I cannot stand the macOS user experience. It feels so ancient. There's no built-in snapping of windows. You maximize an app, it like literally maximizes the whole thing, and then you can't see like the status bar along the top anymore, or the dock below. It's like, what are they doing? What kind of design is this? It's terrible. But yeah. All right, last few questions, and it's time to head off. So get them in now. Did you both get to play the Warzone 2 beta? I have not played the Warzone 2 beta. I would like to. In fact, Matt was supposed to get me a key, and he's not gotten back to me. I'm going to message him right now. Matt, where's my key? Let's see what he says to that. Any chance they will reduce the Duo 2 price any further, like that? What they did with the first Duo? Never say never, though. I don't anticipate them doing it anytime soon. They won't lower it any more than they need to, for sure. If people are buying at the price that it currently was before it sold out, then I think they might try and hang on to that price for a bit longer until people do actually stop buying it, and then that's when they lower the price again. All right, I think that's probably about it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.